The seven centers of the human machine. Today is one of the most important conferences. Why is it important? Because to understand this conference is to understand the whole basis of all the 50 conferences, okay? Because our body works in a whole system, yes? The heart is part of the system, and the brain and everything. The heart wouldn't work without the brain, and the brain can't work if the heart doesn't work, right? So it's a complete system. So we're going to see the complete energy system of each of our centers, where they are, how do they work, what are they there for, what can we do in order for them to work well, how can we save energy, and we must understand that we're going to talk about the physical part, okay? So they are not chakras, they are energy centers. They are the base of the chakras, okay? From here they come out and then you will find the chakras, but these are the bases where they are connected, okay? So they are 7, and we begin from down going up. First of all, let me apologize because this thing here that I have is in Spanish, okay? But I promise that as soon as I finish the video, I will put up an image where you'll find this information in English, okay? So, we begin with the sexual center, okay? Which is here in the coccyx, okay? Here, what is its function? It has the function of creating, and it creates in 3 different ways, okay? One of the creations, as humans, we have the privilege to create another human, okay, and bring it to life. So there we have one creation. The second creation is to finish our own creation. Yes, you might be looking at me like, wait a minute. Yeah, that's why, because we are mortal, we die, okay? And we're not supposed to die. We can get to immortality. So, in this creation here, that is what they call the rising of the Kundalini, it's because I am creating, regenerating my own self through that energy. So that's a second way of creation. Nothing in the universe disappeared. Nothing is misused, especially here that we're talking about energy. Energy transforms. So if I use my sexual life well, using my own sexual energy, rising my Kundalini, I am doing a good creation for that physical body, okay? If I am not rising the Kundalini, but what I am doing is spilling that energy, then I am doing another type of creation, which is harming this physical body, okay? So that's the third creation. It's a creation that harms that physical body, okay? So let's just do it shorter, okay? One creation is creating another human being, okay? Another one, that here is what I just spoke about, making a good creation of myself, recreating myself and my inner bodies, or using that same energy but not transforming it for a good thing for my own creation, but doing a bad creation. That means that I take out of that body that sexual energy every time there's an orgasm or an ejaculation. That energy, I'm taking it out, so I'm making a bad creation because I'm harming this body. What do I mean that I'm harming this body? I am not using that energy well, okay? So that energy is coming out. It's like having a car and the gas keeps leaking, and there's a leak and there's a leak. I'm harming the car. Well, it's the same way. So I am having another type of creation, and the aura of this physical body is going to be negatively affected by that third creation, is something like, there's like they talk about the seven sins, okay? Well, here we find laziness, okay? Like, this is the house, yeah, let's say it that way. This is the house of laziness. And it's unusual because you would say, but it's here where sex is created. And having sex, it's something that people are not lazy to do. I mean, everything moves and makes you move because of that sexual desire. But when it's for that creation to rise in the Kundalini, it's when that defect here moves more, and it will make you become lazy to do that practice. Okay, so that's where we have to work here in that creation. Okay, and obviously it uses sexual energy. Okay, then the second hub, it's on this bone. Okay, the sacrum. In that bone we find our instinctive energy. Okay, here we have, sorry, I'm reading it from here. We have vital energy. Okay, that means that here is everything, all the waters come from that energy. Okay, our blood, for example, our DNA, everything comes from this point of energy. Okay, here is where we find our instinctive part. We have the instinct of saving ourselves. Okay, so for example, there is a tsunami, but you don't know how to climb a tree. But when there's an emergency, instinctively you know what to do. Okay, because this hub has its own conscious, and each of these hubs have their own conscious. That's why it's so important to awaken each of these hubs, to awaken the chakras, because they have their own conscious. So in this conscious is the one that in those cases of emergency, it gives me the information, and immediately I just know what to do. I will just climb, and after it happens, and when I'm like back to normal, I'm not gonna know how to get down. Okay, why? Because it's something that is just the instinct. Okay, for example, there is no need to give a human being class about sex, because instinctively after a certain age, human beings just know what to do. Okay, so here we'll find all that wisdom that we have there. So we have two ways of learning, and it's in that center. Okay, this center moves with greed. Okay, so how does that greed, let's just say house, here we'll find the house of greed. Okay, it affects us in a good and in a bad way. Okay, what would be the good way? Because when we like something, we learn, because there is that desire, because I have greed of knowing that specific thing. Okay, so from here I learn in an open way. What has desire, because not everybody likes for math, not everyone is good in languages, not everyone is good in drawing. But if I have that that desire of doing it, then I learn. Okay, if not, in this way of learning is just a mechanical way of learning. Okay, so it's not going to be from that house specifically. Okay, and it uses vital energy. Okay, going to the third one, we find the energy center. Okay, this was sexual energy, vital energy. Well, this one is emotional energy here that we find in this emotional center. Okay, so when we fall in love, for example, we feel the butterflies, because it's our emotions. Okay, when we feel scared, there's another kind of emotion, and some people get a heart attack. Okay, so we're going to be here feeling emotions, especially about what we call lust. Okay, and it's from that planet of Venus, because it's everything that it's about love. Okay, and here from the five senses we have the smell. Okay, and you can tell from animals, for example, how do they find a partner? By the smell. They start smelling, and they, for example, the dogs, they immediately look for which one is having their period, because that smell is what gives them excitement. Okay, we see perfumes nowadays, how they put hormones and things to be more attracted, and you put it on, and it's, I haven't tried it, but they say that it's supposed to work. So here it's all about that sexual desire mostly. Okay, the fourth one, we have it right, like our heart is here, so it's right, each one of them is on the spinal cord, but at the height of our heart. Okay, and it's the intellectual hub. Okay, so it uses the mind. That's why they tell us sometimes, don't think so much, just don't think, let your heart express itself, because it's right there at the same height. Okay, so here it uses mental energy, and this house is pride. Okay, how is pride related to the mind, to the intellect, to the way of thinking? Because if you have met someone who has a lot of knowledge, but it's not wisdom, okay, it's not because they are wise, because they have lived many experiences, is that they have read a lot of books and they can tell you about anything. Okay, they're like a walking Wikipedia, for example. Anything you want to know, they know, and they know exact dates, they know the name of all the presidents of different countries, and they have, oh my god, this whole big bunch of information, which is great. Okay, but what happens when there is so much intellect there? The pride grows. Okay, and and there the listening skill is developed, because they're always listening, and you will see that they will always butt in, and they will always say, that's not right, or oh yeah, that happened, and they will begin letting you know everything, in what year, why, what happened, but it's always coming out of pride. Okay, how do I know that it is pride? Because maybe we know someone that you would say, well, he knows a lot, but I don't think there's so much pride in him. Watch this person when they talk to someone else that maybe knows the same or more than him, and will let him know that he is on a mistake. You will see how hard it will be for that person to admit, and that person is going to feel bad and will want to go, or that's it, finish the conversation and get upset, because it is related with pride and the way of thinking, because it's the intellect. Okay, then going to the fifth center here, it's related with our movement. Okay, here we'll find the motor energy, because it's all the energy that we use, but for moving. Okay, since it's related with moving, that's what gives our voice the force for things to become real. Okay, that's why things happen when we speak. Okay, and we say something and immediately it happens. Okay, And that's why we have to be careful with the way we speak. Okay, if you have seen, for example, if you have noticed masters, they don't speak a lot. Okay, they talk to you in very short words. They give you a lot of information. So if you're going to read Buddha, for example, it's easy to understand, but in those phrases he gives you a whole bunch of information, a lot of wisdom there. Okay, because they take care of speaking of their voice. Okay, if in a dream, in an astral unfolding, you have ever been conscious and being with a master, or notice that the person that talks to you in the dreams, they don't move their lips. Okay, people communicate through telepathy. Okay, you will see that they don't use their lips very much, because the word is, I forgot the word. Damn, I forgot the word. It's sacred. Okay, it has a lot of meaning, it has a lot of force, and so that's something that we must meditate on. Okay, the way we use this part. Okay, it's all, the house here is anger. Yeah, it is anger. Okay, and it is anger because here is everything of doing. Okay, so immediately that we see that that something is done in a wrong way, we get upset, because anger moves from there. When we speak with a lot of anger, we see that what we say, that those words have a lot of strength, because that emotion, that negative emotion, is giving it more strength for it to happen. Okay, so up to here, these are the lower hubs. What do I mean by lower hubs and higher hubs? That means that these hubs here feed from the energy of the body, of the universe, from what the person eats. It's a creation of that energy, from what the person breathes, from what the person thinks. Okay, so it depends on a whole lot of things. While these two other hubs are superior. Since they are superior, they don't feed from nothing of the physical body. Okay, they feed from a higher energy. Okay, from energy of the spirit. Okay, so here we find the higher emotional center and the higher intellectual center. Okay, so in this emotional center, we'll see that we had an inferior center. Okay, so we have a higher and a superior. That means that these superior emotions are pure. It's from the emotion of love. It means that it observes from love and judges from love. Okay, so when I judge from the vibration of love, I am not fair. Okay, I am being fair. Duh. I am being fair with what I am judging. Okay, because I am not letting my mind, my ego, to get there. Okay, I am just seeing what really happened, feeling and knowing the consequences of what I'm going to do with that, with what I judge, and I'm going to be able to see in the future what will happen if I say this to that person, if I decide to do this or that. Okay, also in the same thing with the intellectual hub. We have a lower one and a higher one. Here we have complete wisdom, which here we said that this one is only about reading books. Well, here it's a superior intellect. That means when we meditate, when people get to a high level of meditation, what happens? Well, their wisdom comes from other levels, from higher levels, like the Reiki. Nobody invented it, right? A Zen sat in meditation and he went to that seventh dimension and brought that information to this plane, from a higher plane to a lower plane. So that's the difference, and that's what they are about. Okay, so how do I keep these 5 spinning well? Observing myself always. Okay, I have to be fully observing my physical body. If I am always fully observing my physical body, then I will know what to do. Okay, how am I going to do that? If I am on the bus and I'm daydreaming, and it may happen to you, you just start laughing, for example. So you laugh and people will look at you like, what are you, nuts? Yeah, I am wasting my energy. So I think there, is it useful what I'm thinking? No, it's not useful. Okay, what kind of energy am I here spending, right? So this is mental energy. Okay, and it's affecting also my emotions. Or if I am thinking dirty, well, I'm using this kind of energy. I am thinking of something I'm going to do. Is it worth it to be doing it? Yes or no? So immediately I ask my conscious to eliminate that way of thinking. And then I make a conscious decision of not doing this. Guys, as you have heard the door there, I have to go, I have to open, and I will publish this later on and leave you a link where I have a longer video of this same information.